In this first lesson, we will look into the tools that help you to systematically analyze the general competitive environment and guide a company to examine its strategy in its current operation or to develop strategy for its new ventures. Start with the analysis of external environments. The objectives here are to evaluate the attractiveness of a business area and to identify the main threats and opportunities. The average profitability and potential growth determine the attractiveness of the business area. The more attractive is a business area, the higher competition can we expect. Besides, factors such as high number of similar competitors, undifferentiated products, high fixed costs in the operation, and high level of specialization can increase the level of competition. Higher threats of new entrants can be expected in attractive business area. For incumbent companies of small size, having distinguishing value in the products, having strong brand identity in the market niche, having access to proper distribution channel, or having support such as government subsidies could be less threatened by new entrants. Besides the same type of products, the threats of substitutes should be evaluated as well. Substitutes are different products that are able to satisfy the same needs, that form a broader set of competition. Substitutes are more threatening when they have a more attractive price-performance ratio. Competition also exists in a downstream and upstream of the supply chain. For small companies selling through distributors, the distributors often have high bargaining power that could constrain the small companies to conduct themselves according to the terms of the distributors. Having unique products and brand identity could help the small companies to gain bargaining power over the buyers. In upstream, if the market is concentrated with a few large suppliers, they would have higher bargaining power over the small companies. The importance of uniqueness of the suppliers' offerings could also increase their bargaining power. The above points complete an analysis of competitive environments of a specific business area with Porter's 5 competitive forces model. In addition, the following factors of the macro environment will complement the external analysis: political factors such as legislation, taxation, trade policy, environmental protection laws, and so on. Economic factors, economic situation, interest rates, GDP trends, and so on. Social-cultural factors, demographics, education level, attitude, lifestyle, and so on. Technological factors, infrastructure, investments on research, and so on. From the analysis of external environments, we can identify the opportunities and the threats to the business. The opportunities should be exploited, while the threats should be avoided or managed in the design of products and in the marketing plan. Next, we turn to the company itself for an internal analysis. The objectives of internal analysis are to evaluate the competitive advantage of the company. Competitive advantage concerns both cost and value. All the activities that are necessary in order to deliver the company's products to the market have a cost. The cost can be driven by different factors. Small companies usually have this advantage in keeping costs low, as small quantity prevents small companies from enjoying economies of scale. However, cost competitive advantage could also exist in product or process design, institutional factors, and so on. Different activities have the potential to create value competitive advantages as well. The value means how the product is unique to the customers. Such value could come from quality, performance, time to market, level of customization, complementary service, and so on. Given the challenge of keeping costs low for small companies, it is especially important for them to identify unique values that they are able to create for the customers. From the internal analysis, the company would be able to identify its strength and weakness. With the external and internal analysis, we have identified the opportunities and threats present to the company and the strength and weakness of the company. Now, the company would have a good understanding of the business environment in which it operates. With a good understanding of the business area and one's own strength and weakness, a company can proceed to evaluate or to define its strategic direction. One of the factors to consider is the scope of the market, that is, whether the company would compete in a broad market or in a specific niche. Another factor to consider is the source of competitive advantage, that is, whether the company should compete on cost or on differentiated values. Generally speaking, for small companies selling physical products, it could be more difficult to address a broad market due to limited capacity in production and distribution. Therefore, identifying suitable market niche could be critical for small companies. However, digital technology has significantly lowered the geographic barrier for both services and products. As a result, market niche is less restricted by location and is more influenced by customer characteristics. Generally speaking, again, it could be more difficult for small companies to compete on cost due to the lack of economies of scale. Therefore, it is usually more viable for small companies to identify unique values that they can provide by focusing on its core competencies, developing its expertise, and choosing the right market segments. In the next lesson, we will talk about how to identify market segments and to identify unique value to offer to the market.